Well, I'd like to take you back to January of 1992. And it was a cold, rainy morning, as so many of those gray Seattle mornings are. And I had been at a business meeting the evening before for a chamber. And a gentleman by the name of Rick Meadows invited me to go to Rotary the following morning. In a moment of weakness, I said yes. And I still remember getting up the Friday morning. It was about, well, dark 30. And my wife rolled over and said, "Hey, where are you going anyway at this hour?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to a Rotary Club meeting." She said, "Good luck with that," rolled over and went back to sleep. And I remember getting down to the car and driving down the street. Rain was coming down sideways, the windshield wipers are going. And I pulled into the Bellevue Athletic Club, and I had to park way in the back 40, and I was walking through the rain puddles, my shoes were getting wet, and I got up to the Bellevue Athletic Club, and as my hand touched the front door, I went, "Oh my gosh, this is probably one of those multi-level marketing scams." Oh well, I thought I'd go in anyways. So I'm walking down the hall, and I come up to these two doors where it enters into the ballroom. And the doors open up, and there's two really friendly gentlemen standing there, and they said, "Welcome to Bellevue Breakfast Rotary Club. We're so happy that you're here today." I'm like, "Well, thank you very much." And I went over to pay for my breakfast. They said, oh, your money's no good here. You're our guest here today, and we will not let you pay." I said, "Okay, great." And they led me over to the buffet, and I walked through it, and it's just this beautiful, well-prepared food. Everything's nice, the plates, the silverware, everything. And I start walking into the main ballroom. There are probably about 100 people in the room there. And I can see Rick Meadows. He's waving at me, "Come on over here." But as I get to the very first table in the ballroom, a group of people there say, hey, are you visiting for the first time today?" And I said, "Well, yes, I am." They said, "Then you should come sit with us." And as I walked to sit down, nobody said, "Don't sit there, that's Joe's chair." And in fact, they welcomed me with open arms. They were all describing their businesses. They asked me what I do for my line of work. And we had a great conversation until all of a sudden, ding, a bell rings and they all jump to attention. I'm looking around like, what is this, like Pavlov's dog or something? But they all stood up, and there was a Pledge of Allegiance, there was a nice invocation, and then the president got up and he started talking about the various projects that this Rotary Club does in their community. He was talking about giving out scholarships, they were talking about work parties in food banks, they were even talking about a project that they were going to do within Bellevue High School called the Success Program that they were helping roll out. And then he started talking about international projects. And they were involved in a housing project down in Tijuana, they were involved in fresh water wells in Ethiopia, and the list went on. And I had to look around and go, who are these people? Good grief, it's not even 8 a.m. and they've given away more money than I've thought about all week. And then the speaker got up. And the speaker started off with the premise that there's 24 hours in every day, and that many of us work for 8 hours and we sleep for 8 hours. And then he walked right over to where I was sitting, and he looked right at me and he said, "What are you doing with the other 8 hours of your life?" And then he went on to describe what he's doing with the other 8 hours of his life. And whether it was working with terminally ill children at Children's Hospital or the plethora of other things that he did, I just started feeling really puny. And I started feeling really challenged, because I had to admit, when I thought about it, I wasn't doing anything with the other 8 hours of my life. So after the speaker was done, I went up to Phil Smart Sr. and I said, "Mr. Smart, thank you so much. I really appreciated your presentation today because it challenged me and it made me realize that I'm really not doing anything with the other 8 hours of my life. And I promise you that over the next few months, I'm going to spend time trying to figure out what it is I'm supposed to be doing with that other 8 hours of my life. So thank you very much." And he said, "You know, you really ought to think about joining Rotary." And I said, "Well, Mr. Smart, that's fine for you. You've been in Rotary for a long time and all these other people." But I said, until last night, I really didn't know anything about Rotary whatsoever. I mean, I'd seen the little sign, when you pull into rural towns, but I didn't know anything about Rotary, and I sure didn't know you did all the things that you guys do that you described today. He goes, well, what did you think about the meeting? And I said, it was impressive. You know, you had all these high-powered people from Bellevue, and you're doing all these great projects and doing good in your community, and it looks like everybody's good friends. He said, yeah. He says, that's what I thought when I joined Rotary. And you know what? It's changed my life immensely. And so I really encourage you to think about it. Maybe go on a project, maybe come back, visit the club a few times and see what you think. But I'll bet you're going to love Rotary. And in fact, if you decide to join and you don't love it after 3 months, I'll call the president, I'll call Dick Brown, and I'll tell him it was my idea that you joined, and I'll get you off the hook. So the following weekend, we were out cleaning carpets at Eastside Adult Daycare to see what Rotary did. And then I came back for a few meetings. And you know what? I joined. And it profoundly changed my life and my family's life. You know, since joining, we've done community service projects all over the Seattle area, and my children have gotten involved in it. And then after a few years of being in Rotary, I was asked to accompany a dentist and a doctor over to Romania. And I said, what are they going to do with a lawyer in Romania? They said, don't worry, we'll train you. And in fact, they did. And they trained me how to be a dental technician. And you can see that picture of me where I'm holding my mouth open, trying to get this guy to open his mouth so I can stuff a dental x-ray in there. Yeah, because he didn't speak English. But we managed to get through it. And then before you know it, I'm in Russia working on a project. And then in Guatemala, putting in fresh water and working in a village down there. And there's a picture there of the president with a tear in his eye as we were dedicating the water system. And he looked at me and said, thank you so much, and thank you, Rotary, for bringing us fresh water. Our babies have stopped dying. And it was at that moment that I realized what Rotary was all about. As my family watched the dedication, I believe they understood what Rotary was all about at that point too. Since then, we've been on Computers for the World trip to Antigua, the beautiful island of Antigua, where they didn't have much of a computer system. And we brought down hundreds of computers and kids from Newport High School that came along with us and installed the computer labs. And so, then last year I served as district governor. A journey that never would have happened without Rotary. Rotary has profoundly changed my life. And I oftentimes think, what would have happened if I had walked into that ballroom that afternoon or that morning for breakfast and somebody had said, don't sit there, that's Joe's chair? Or what if I hadn't been warmly greeted? Or what if when I walked through the food line, the food was substandard? Or the president wasn't interesting? Or they weren't doing any projects? Or the speaker was bad? I dare say if any of those things had happened, I would have done what I had intended to do. I would have visited one time, I would have politely thanked Rick Meadows for inviting me, and I never would have gone back again. And how different my life and my family's life would have been if I had never joined Rotary.